being playful, being fun, laughing, crying, connecting. This just might be the thing that you need. Welcome to another episode of Trigger Proof. Actually, I'm pleased to say we've made it to episode number 6. Today, we're going to be talking about why your traditional therapies don't always work. We're going to be talking about the missing link on today's episode. Welcome for those of you joining us for the very first time. My name is Dr. Nima Rahmany. I've been a chiropractor for the last 18 years, struggling as to why I'm not really getting to the root cause of why the patients are coming in the first place. And when I dug in and investigated, and I would go upstream, the root cause of the root cause always seemed to be the same. And it was in my recoveries and the discoveries in my recovery that I came up with this very all-encompassing model that's both top-down and bottom-up, which I'm going to explain, that helps transform stress, transform victimhood, transform a feeling of a disconnection from oneself and purpose, and upgrades your intimacy so that you can actually feel healthy from within, connected to your purpose, so that you can have a context for healthy relationships. It's really about the neuroscience of healthy relationships. The goal of this show is to help you expand that space between stimulus and response. Before I discovered this type of work, I was the type of person that was obsessed with what other people thought of me. Consistently, it's something that I struggle with on a regular basis. And what I've done now is I've actually come up with a model to help you transform that. And I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, to please ask. This could be something that we can engage and interact in. It could be the topic of another show if something comes up for you. The goal of this show is to actually trigger you. It's to show you, is to allow you, and this is what I share with my clients as well, it's to actually bring up whatever's been constraining you so that we can actually look at it with a whole new set of eyes and then transform that stressful state into power, into connection, into intimacy. And the method that we use, that we talk about each and every time, today we're going to be talking about commitment and community, which is why traditional one-to-one therapies don't always work. And now, I want to do this as a disclaimer. This is not to knock on psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors. We work with many of those. We have many of those as clients, many of psychologists, counselors, even psychiatrists that are clients of mine. And it's not that the one-to-one therapies are bad or wrong. They're absolutely necessary. Pay attention a little bit today. You're going to discover why, if we just leave it at that, your healing journey can be incomplete and what you can do about it to completely change the story. Going in a little bit more about model that I've been talking about. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, I go into the process that I take my clients through, that we take our clients through, to help them go from career limbo, relationship limbo, stuck in that state of, should I stay or should I go? Stuck in that state of, why am I here? Why am I so obsessed with what everybody thinks of me? Why am I so governed by externals, which means running towards praise and recognition and running away from criticism. That tendency that we have to run towards one thing and to run away from another thing actually doesn't put us in the driver's seat of our lives and doesn't allow us to create the life that we desire. And simply by becoming conscious and following these steps, you can actually transform that state of anxiety, relationship limbo, should I stay, should I go, break down from a breakup that could absolutely destroy you. You can actually turn all of that into fuel for greater intimacy, deeper connection, and deeper meaning in your life. This is the path that I went through. I had to figure it out. I had some amazing help along the way, and this is the journey that we went through. So a little bit of a recap. The intimacy upgrade that you're requiring in order to transcend that transitional anxiety of should I stay or should I go? What's my purpose? Who am I? Why am I so not healthy? Why am I so easily triggered? Why is there no space between stimulus and response? It begins with nervous system regulation. An ability to regulate ourselves, which I never really thought about. We talk about yoga and meditation. Seldom are we actually, most of the things that traditional therapies that you do to help you regulate from your triggers, they're mostly cognitive based. And when I met Dr. Russell Kennedy and he taught me the value of actually going into the body-based solutions to lower our alarm and regulate anxiety, it gave new meaning to the term nervous system regulation. So please go back to the previous episodes and watch if you're interested in learning more about that. Nervous system regulation is important. The next step is in order for you to upgrade your intimacy and have healthier relationships and experience freedom and a deeper connection to oneself, one must do probably one of the most difficult things, is to overcome your victim story. Especially with the primary caregivers of your life, mom and dad. I had a patient the other day who came in and she had an incredible knee pain. And I asked her, I said, when did your knee pain begin? And she said, about 4 years ago. And I asked her this question, I said, what was going on in your life 4 years ago? And there was a huge breakdown in her relationship with her father. There was some past kind of sexual trauma there. So she really views him as a monster and really has a resistance against him. Yet, there's a confusing part of us, because at the same time when we have this deep resentment towards the people in our lives, mother, father, brother, sister, ex-partner, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, we have this resistance against them. Our soul has this deep desire to love and connect. So this confusion, this disconnect between that completely robs us of our power. So if you want to expand your intimacy, connect deeper with yourself and your purpose, one must complete the victim story from your past. We must get past that story that it happened to us, and we got to upgrade it to it happened by us and through us, so that you can see that your strengths and superpowers came from those past events. And when you regulate your nervous system and you complete your victim story, a very magical thing happens. Those people who complain, I'm just never present, I'm always in my head, you achieve a sense of presence. And the next part after that is you gotta learn how to dance with your dark passenger, which we're gonna talk a little bit about today as well. A previous episode, we did that 2 episodes ago, I believe it was number 3 or 4. Learning how to dance with your dark passenger, that ego, that wounded inner child, the thing that's usually driving the bus, that's trying to keep you safe, that's trying to keep you separate from others, that tries to tell you that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough. These old programming, old subconscious programming, we must get into the practice of bringing the unconscious to the conscious and choosing again. Bringing the unconscious to the conscious and choosing again. And when you get that part right, and you actually have learned how to dance with your dark passenger, and you've completed your victim story, you now develop a sense of understanding for yourself. The people who reach out to me and say, I just don't know who I am, I don't have a connection with who I am. When they've gotten that part right, they now have a sense of understanding for self, which then makes it more possible to be intimate with others. And you have a huge sense of clarity that happens. When you don't get these 3 parts right, there is no understanding, you're never present, and you lack authenticity and vulnerability and fulfillment. It's just not fulfilling when you don't know how to work with the unconscious default mode network in your brain. You don't know, we haven't been taught in school. It's not our fault. We really have never been taught this. When we still hold on to resentments towards past partners, our relationships, past relationships, friendships that have been broken down, and your nervous system is not regulated, you are not living authentically. You're not actually enjoying the experience of being alive. Let me know if this actually resonates with you. Welcome, Pamela, it's good to have you. When you get all of these right, you have a deeper sense of authenticity and fulfillment. You're actually in your body, you're present. You can look people in the eye, you're more likely to go out and do the next step, which is learning how to have empathic communication. In order to upgrade your intimacy, in order to have healthier relationships, in order for you to know whether you should stay or you should go, you must abandon the labels that you have of your partner, of the other person. You must look within and first learn how to empathize with yourself, and then learn to empathize with the other. We did an amazing episode last time on narcissism and codependency, and it is a pandemic. I was in the midst of a narcissistic codependent relationship, both of us. We both played kind of both roles. And the reason why I learned this was because of the toxic meltdown and aftermath of that experience led me to do this inner search, stop working for a while, go inside and really discover along that recovery. And these are the critical steps. Empathic, having empathy, which is not really taught, and it's very uncommon, especially for people who've had trauma and they don't know how to see themselves. Learning how to have empathic communication is very critical. And today, the last little step of this model, we're talking about, I don't know if you can see it, the lighting's a little bit off today, commitment and community. We're talking about commitment and community, why that's important. And this is why traditional one-to-one therapies don't actually fully do the job. And we're going to talk about the social engagement system. But this here is the intimacy upgrade model of transforming relationships, of transforming your connection with yourself, transforming your relationship with the universe. This is it, and it's something that I had to go through after having my world completely rocked with a breakdown in a relationship, which is usually the gift of the breakdowns is the great wake-up call. So I want to encourage you to take a look and see where you fit into this. Where have you experienced a wake-up call? Have you had one lately? What's been going on for you, and how does this fit in? And what would happen to your life if you actually took a look at all of those areas that weren't working and you were to put these goggles on and have a shift in your perspective? Today, we're going to actually go into commitment and community. We're going to be talking about the social engagement system. The reason why I love teaching this stuff is because it's what I most need to learn. I really had no ability to handle my triggers. I became increasingly aware that my nervous system was deregulated and I was dissociated from myself. And as I worked on these tools and this model, my world started opening up. And I realized that we all actually want the same things. We all want healing from our past. We all want to transform our current state to a life that we desire in business, relationships, and our health. We all want the same thing. And we all want desperately to feel seen and heard. If you don't believe me, check out Instagram. We are desperate to be seen and heard because chances are in childhood, with childhood trauma that has been passed down from generation to generation, our parents didn't have attachment training, didn't have a nervous system regulation training to know how to properly see and hear us. And so as a result, this desire, this childlike state that happens when we get triggered, we regress to that just wants to be seen and heard. And the reason why we want that is we all want to have this shared experience of life. And when we don't get that, we isolate, we withdraw, and the world consistently gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And we don't really have an ability to interact with others when we're in that state of alarm, and we all want that same thing. But the challenges that we face along the way is that when you're in a state of alarm, you then want to isolate. The fight or flight starts to take over, and then you want to separate yourself from other people because you don't inherently feel safe, and a dissociation starts to happen. And so the way that we overcome that is to activate our right prefrontal cortex, part of our right prefrontal cortex, with social engagement, is to get engaged, to be face-to-face with others. Because when you get into community and you're into a face-to-face conversation and I look you in the eye, you I feel safe that, okay, we're making eye contact at this time, and according to Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, when we're in alarm and we see other people and we make eye contact, it lowers our fight or flight, and it activates our social engagement system. And so what happens is we're in the game of self-regulation, and when we can connect with community and share vulnerably, we have co-regulation. And to talk a little bit more about the neuroscience of that, I'm going to invite my good friend and neuroscientist, Dr. Russell Kennedy, to come and share a little bit about why that's so important and how we can take full advantage of that. Dr. Russ.
Hey, Nima.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me see if I can get myself in the center of this picture here.
Okay, good. And how's your hair looking today?
It's okay. Let's see if I can get this centered up here. Yeah. A little better. Yeah.
Can you just do a little something here?
No, I like the little tail. Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna leave it today. Okay.
Yeah. We're connecting now. This is what we're doing. We're using our social engagement system to tease each other. This is what we're doing.
Play. Yes.
Play. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. When we play, to see that little interaction is one of the things I really appreciate the most about my relationship with Dr. Russell Kennedy. Is we're literally cool. First of all, he's a stand-up comedian as well. And so we literally are razzing each other constantly. And there's something to be said about that with the social engagement system and play. Can you talk a little bit about that, Dr. Russell?
Yeah. I mean, it's part of it is movement too. Like Dr. Porges talks about this too, is that we get into this movement because we're activated to move, to engage. And, often when we're playing sports or something like that, we will lose that a little bit. So it's a matter of getting a combination of movement and connection at the same time, which is what play really is. And then especially if you add in humor to it as well, because a lot of the social engagement system depends on your tone of voice, your body language, your facial muscles. The face is the only place where your muscles in your body, where your muscles are directly attached to the skin. So that when I smile, I get this thing. And the funny thing about that is that when you smile for the camera and your eyes don't change, you can tell.
It's fake.
And you can tell that coming back full circle, you can tell when you're interacting with someone when they're not quite present.
Totally, 100%. So, Dr. Russ, can you tell us why the social engagement system is so important in regulating your nervous system to help you become trigger-proof?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is when people go into alarm, they lose that engagement. They lose that ability. And on top of that, they want to isolate.
Yep. And we see that all the time.
Yeah.
We see that all the time in our program, in our group.
Yeah.
Is they get into alarm and they disengage. And that's the exact opposite of what the nervous system requires in order to heal, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because we go back to a primitive phase of our nervous system. When we're in alarm, we're not friendly and engaging. So the dichotomy or the challenge is when we don't feel like connecting, that's when we need to connect the most. And that's when we need to use the social engagement system, because 80% of our vagus nerve, the main parasympathetic nerve, the main relaxation nerve of our body, is afferent. It sends messages back up to the brain. So if our heart rate's going fast and our breathing is shallow, we send a message up to our brain, which makes our face go flat, which makes other people not want to engage with us. And then when you're talking about victim story, when you get into a victim story, your face goes flat, you go into alarm, and it's really hard to connect with somebody who's in a victim story. So, but that's exactly what they need. They need to be connected with at that point to bring them out of the victim story so that they can self-regulate themselves. And the ironic part is that self-regulation involves other people.
Other people.
Yeah.
Is that crazy?
Yeah.
It's because we're hardwired socially, isn't it? And so you raised an amazing point, Russ. The whole concept that when we get into alarm, the first thing that we want to do is isolate. And what causes this alarm are life events. So when you're going through a divorce, you're going through a separation, you're going through a financial crisis, or you literally get stopped by something traumatizing happens to you. The natural tendency when you're in alarm is to isolate. But And then when you can go and do therapies, at that time, a lot of times what people will do is they're going to go get a counselor or a therapist, which is very, very good, which is extremely important, so that you can actually have somebody to talk to, because the inside of a mayonnaise jar can't read the label. So we do require that accountability and that a different perspective. But can you talk a little bit about, once somebody has gone in through an alarm because of a relationship limbo, they're like, oh my gosh, they're in a state of threat. My relationship's about to end. I don't know what I want to do in my career. I'm not fulfilled. They're stopped by something. They're disconnected from themselves. Why it's so important why the one-on-one isn't going to get you complete. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, it'll help. As you point out, it's really important to have that one. It's better than nothing, for sure. But I think, thousands and thousands of years ago, we were in community. We were in tribes. And when one person went through, death of a parent or even death of a child or something really significant, the other people in the tribe would come around them and allow their nervous system to help regulate the person on their own. So this one-on-one model is kind of a poor cousin of that. It's helpful, no doubt. And for some people, it's a great thing. And a lot of us don't have a group that we meet with on a regular basis. So if it's better, it's certainly better than nothing, but ideally it would be great to have both, to have a one-on-one counselor and to have a group, because I think we co-regulate best with a bunch of other people rather than just one. And it's a lot of pressure to put on your psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor for them to fix you, for them to be the person in your life that fixes you. You really need a tribe of people around you if you're really going to heal. And that, I'm an anxiety specialist, and that's what I recommend to people all the time, is to get into a group where you feel connected, as opposed to just depending on me to fix you.
100%. Thank you for sharing that. And that really is very powerful, because I immediately, as you're sharing, a lot of stuff comes into my mind about clients who've come in. And I remember one of them from last week, she basically said, I hope you don't expect me to be on group calls because I don't want to be seen. Right. And I smiled at her and I said, oh, honey, yes, you do. Number one, because when you're in alarm, you don't want to be seen, but deep down inside in our psyche, we have this deep desire to be seen. But the problem and the challenge and the obstacle is the vulnerability, the courage to put ourselves out there to share, which is terrifying for so many people, especially if you're in alarm. But an interesting thing happened to this woman when she jumped in, and I got her to introduce herself to everybody. She shared herself, and she was sharing all of the challenges that she was going through, and that she was stopped by and confronted by a disconnection from self. She feels like even though she's 65 years old, she still feels like a little child, because she was one trauma after another, and she feels like she doesn't know who she is. And she took the risk in actually sharing that, okay? And she took the risk of actually sharing that. You were on the call for that, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And so what happened was, it gave all of us an opportunity. Can you share what happens when somebody in a group, in a tribe, in a community, shares a truth that's vulnerable? And we were all able to see it. And then I asked the question, show of hands, everybody, how many can relate to her? And everybody put up the hand, and she just started bursting in tears. And the tears were like a surrender. My goodness, I'm not alone. And that is not readily available just with a one-on-one, is it?
No, and the thing about human beings is we want to feel. If you go through a whole day, I've had whole days where I worked hard and I got stuff done, but I didn't really connect with anybody. That's not really, at the end of the day, I felt good about what I did, but there was no connection there. We want to feel as human beings. That's what life is all about. You want to feel. So when you see someone else feeling, either laughing really hard or cracking up, like the other day, we cracked up over a joke, or crying. We all want to be able to tap into that and feel that. That's what life is all about, and we're trained so much by our media to just be this kind of flat, homogenous, you're supposed to be happy, you're supposed to have all these things, and we want to feel
in our computers, in our devices constantly.
Well, that's a great point. The thing about computers and devices is we don't get the same level of social engagement system and brain interaction that we would one-on-one. And that's why our children are so racked with anxiety, because they never learn to deal with any negative emotion because they constantly detract into their devices. So they're not actually doing one-on-one FaceTime, and they're not going outside to play with each other. They're sitting at home on their computer. So their brains aren't maturing. So
there's no social engagement system. There's no activation.
Yeah.
And there's no challenging. There's no the courage to be vulnerable. There's no, and what we talked about, play. And so there's different levels of social engagement, right? There's a text message I can receive that gives me a little bit of a hit of oxytocin when you send it saying, Nima, I love you, which I appreciate when you do that, by the way, Dr. Russ. It's very sweet of you when you do that. It's very charming, and I appreciate that. Then there's a phone call where I can actually hear your voice and go, hey, brother, I just want to tell you I love you.
Yeah.
And then there's the next level, which is being face-to-face. Where when I'm face-to-face with you and I look and we make eye contact, and our nervous systems are saying, I'm safe with you. When I make eye contact, my nervous system says, I'm safe. And just with the eye contact and watching and in being in play shuts off my stress response. That's freaking powerful stuff that you can't just get just in a one-on-one therapy session.
I mean, well, it's not really going to stick to that point. The more people that you have in your environment, the more deep that connection becomes. And the more, once you have that deep connection, you're able to revitalize it or bring it up in your own mind. I know there's times that I go to visit you in Vancouver and I come in on the traffic, and you know what I'm like about traffic. And then we met for dinner and you're saying, you're not making eye contact with me. You're not, because I'm still fighting traffic. I'm still like, you know,
you're still in your head, and I'm like, Russ,
calm down. Yeah, calm down. Like, look at me, you know, breathe, kind of. And that was really helpful because it really brought me out of that kind of fight or flight. Because when we're in fight or flight, that we can't be compassionate to other people or ourselves. And that's probably the biggest thing. So when you're in fight or flight, you need other people to help regulate you. And then once you learn that regulation, then you can do that for yourself, and then you can learn over time that you can co-regulate with someone else, and that you can, then it works out well, as opposed to fight or flight, isolation. I'm alone and I'm going to stay alone, because that cycle will just keep feeding itself.
Totally. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Russ. I really appreciate that. Tune in. I might check in on you in just a minute. But that's totally.
I totally appreciate that. I mean, I really want to hammer home this concept that trigger proof basically means learning how to self-regulate. Based on how we're hardwired in our nervous system, we can't do it alone. We require others. And the challenge is, when you're in alarm, the last thing you want to do is interact with other people. So can you see the conundrum that your nervous system is in? You must, in order to get this right, you must step over that bridge of fear and to reach out for help. Share, I'm not okay. Be of service to other people. So many times when I'm like in a really challenging place and I'm in a state of alarm, I pick up the phone or I go and I start helping clients, and I realize that helping people helps me self-regulate, because it's a co-regulation. Because we are hardwired socially. And if you can come and be in real life, in physical proximity, all the power to you. So you could get a lot more by going out dancing and taking a salsa dancing class, which is all about play. You're literally playing in the moment with the music. You're socially engaging, you're making eye contact. In every moment, you're basically saying, I'm safe right now. And that, I remember when I started in a really stressful period of time, when I started my chiropractic practice, I started doing salsa dancing. I started joining, different communities, so that I unconsciously was going after the social engagement system. You must engage in order to have your nervous system be healthy. End of story, end of discussion. It just reminds me when I see some of you guys, I see Joe here, James, and the people that are tuning in right now, the amount of transformation that I see when people are sitting there isolated. they're disconnected, they don't have the tools, they're wondering why they're so stuck, they have trauma one after another, they have victim stories from their past, or blame or shame, victim to themselves, victim stories against themselves. And just by jumping in and we take them through each of this process, they feel more presence, they feel more sense of understanding. They're now able to communicate with their partners who you could be even divorcing, but you can still have powerful, connected, intimate relationship that doesn't have to be, in rage and in resentment with one another. You can consciously uncouple, because on the other side of doing this work, you'll know, should I stay or should I go? Because you've upgraded yourself. The answer is always to upgrade. So let me know what comes up for you as you're listening to this. Can you see yourself in this? Have you noticed when you isolate? Have you noticed when you try to run away or you try to hide? Is that your tendency? And can you become aware? The question you want to ask is, can I become aware if I'm isolating right now? Can I catch myself in mid-act? Can I learn to dance with my dark passenger? That's what that means. Dancing with your dark passenger actually means I'm isolating. I'm isolating right now, and I know that that's not good for me, and I know that I'm scared, but I have to reach out. I'm gonna change a step in the dance, and I'm gonna reach out. That's really what dancing with your dark passenger is. Your life depends on it. To illustrate this, I would like to invite my last guest. She's a very special person to me. Basically, I met her probably 10 years ago when she came to me as a patient in my chiropractic practice, and instantly we hit it off. She was on kind of a spiritual level. She was this yogi, and instantly there was like a brother-sister type of interaction that happened. And as she started participating in my workshops and inviting me to speak to her yoga teacher training, and I became friends with, really close with her kids, and I became kind of like an uncle. It was just being able to see her through some really challenging times. It's amazing to see the transformation, so much so that now she's helping other people do the exact same thing. I want to invite my soul sister.
Are you there, Eilina? Can you hear me?
I'm here. Hello, brother.
Eilina is in Indonesia currently. And what time is it over there right now?
It's 2:30 in the morning.
Oh my, see, this is commitment. When I say commitment and community, this is it. So Eilina, welcome. I'm so grateful that you took the time, you set your alarm, you woke up so you could be here live with us. Could you guys give her some love? Those of you who know her, just give her some love. So Eilina, can you share a little bit about your story through this whole concept of this social engagement and how you used us through dark periods of time and what impact it made for you, so much so that you're now leading the charge as well. Can you share a bit your story?
Yeah, thank you. Welcome everyone. Great to see everyone, and I want you guys to see where your journey maybe resonates with my story as I share with you, what you can relate to for yourself. I went through a very night of my soul around 5 years ago when my dad had stage 4 cancer, and I moved back from California to Vancouver to take care of him. And I was going through a divorce at the same time. So, they say...
Double whammy. Double whammy.
Double,
yeah.
and moving.
And moving. And you have two boys. Teenagers.
Yeah. Teenagers at the time, yeah. So they say the top stressors for the first world anyhow is loss of a loved one and moving or a change of job and loss in a relationship. Yeah. So I had that triple whammy, and I was in full fight or flight at the time, full alarm. I was really just treading water to keep my mouth, just above the surface of the water to be able to breathe.
We all know how that feels. Oh my gosh. We all know how that feels. Yeah.
Yeah. To breathe and just keep the family going, keep my mom, who was soon to be a widow, supported. And so many of us, when we are at that stage of life where we've just got compound pressure from all directions, we just go into rote survival mode. I'm sure many of you listening can relate to that. Survival mechanisms kick in. to just keep things going, to keep things safe. And then we isolate. And I'll never forget, I was upstairs, this was just after a really particularly rough day after I just moved back to Vancouver, and probably had just taken my dad to multiple doctor's visits, and still in regards to the divorce, so many things were unknown. And I went upstairs and turned all the lights off and just holed up in my bedroom and literally wanted to die. I was like, I can't take any more of this pressure. And I just wanted to curl up under the blankets and just have everything go away. And two of my best friends came over with some flowers and walked upstairs, and they were like, Eileen, are you okay? Like, they were literally whispering just to check in. And my world went from, I wanted all to go away, to, oh my God, there's love again. And I'm sure for those of you guys listening, you can relate to that, where when you're going through a transition like that, it can feel like the darkest night of your soul. And then you have a moment, you have these moments, these glimpses where it's like, when you can connect with a loved one, when you can connect even with a stranger who you're just finding something to connect about. Yeah, exactly. We see that hope again. And really that hope is because we're not meant to go through these challenges alone. We're really not. The gift of our dark nights of our soul is that they bring us back into community.
You know, when you reached out and started engaging in the community, and you would come to these workshops, and literally what did that do? And it literally inspired you into going from the darkest night of your soul. Take me from that and joining in this community and really participating and doing the work, clearing your victim story after again and again, dark passenger work. You now have gone to a place where you're one of the leaders of our community. Can you take us through that? How did you get there?
While my dad was sick, so this was about 5 years ago, I attended I think it was one of your first overview weekends in Port Coquitlam, where my parents lived actually. And that was a really pivotal moment for me, because it allowed me to look at some blind spots that I'd never looked at my entire life, even though I'd done, like all of you guys listening. So it was that first workshop that had me go, holy crap, there's so much here that I'm unaware of, even though I've done quote unquote the work. And so it started this 1.5-year journey where I did more of your workshops, did more of the work on myself, worked in community with other participants, doing overviews on myself, doing them in community with other people. As I did that in community with other people over these weekends, and developed friendships where we would message each other, and often you had created, I believe it was the Art of Alignment Facebook group at the time.
Yeah,
and you were encouraged. There. Yeah, we're still there, still alive there. You encouraged us all to share our revelations in community. And it was that really got me addicted to doing this with other people. I was like, this
we're onto something.
We're
onto something. Holy crap.
This liberation that I'm feeling for myself, wow, I can help other people feel that same liberation. These revelations that you have about your blind spots, suddenly you have an extra pair of eyes that you can use to bring wisdom to your life. Exactly. So just over the course of 1.5 years of doing these workshops, working with other people in community, and just slowly, like I've been teaching yoga for 18 years. And what I noticed is that in classes is you get people just coming over the years again and again and again. They already know the postures, they already know the sequences, but they're coming because it's a synergistic collective
co-regulation. So it's kind of like when you're teaching your yoga class, and many of you listening, you're in a yoga class, there's something you can go yoga and do the yoga at home, which is great, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in a room and everyone's doing the same thing and you're oming together, and what you're doing is everyone's tuning in to the same, they're setting a sympathetic nervous system tone. They're setting the tone of the nervous system through co-regulation. And that's why it's so magical, because we are hardwired socially to experience that for our healing.
Yeah, we
And
need
so what
community to. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, we need
we
community.
heal through community.
We heal through community, and community is the mirror that reminds us of our potential and our greatness. We look at others and see what they are stretching themselves outside of their comfort zone in, and it reminds us, I can do that in such and such area of my life too. So we really learn our mirror neurons. We really learn by observing each other. Not that we have to do what they do, but they remind us of our potential.
Beautiful. Eilina, I wanted to say thank you. Number one, for waking up, in the middle of the night so that you can join us and then share your story, because it's very inspiring what you went through. And you forgot to throw in that you also had like a near-death experience with your son, a couple of them, with your son in the midst of all of that we did the work through. And thank God for the community, because we're all there for you, right? And so what I wanted to do was just to acknowledge you just for the role you've played in my life. And when I was in the darkest of places, you were there. And you were my sister. You're part of that co-regulation and community, there to remind me of my power in the moment where I felt that I had completely lost it. And that, my friends, is the power of social engagement and community, is that when you have forgotten the truth of who you are, it is imperative to surround yourself with people who will remind you and not buy into any other story than the one of your greatness. And I wanted to say thank you to you for that, for being there for me for that.
We are an intentional family.
That's right. There's chosen family, and then there's intentional family. Love you, sis, and get some rest, and we'll see you when you get back, hon.
Thanks.
All right. Wow. That is quite powerful. I wanted to invite also Dr. Russell. Did you have any other kind of parting words, sharing about that? First and foremost, I wanted to acknowledge you as well for helping me co-regulate on a regular basis. We have that relationship where we co-regulate each other and constantly remind each other through the social engagement system, through play, through comedy, through humor, reminding ourselves, each other, of the truth of who we are. So is there anything you wanted to add behind the acknowledgement of you for that? Yeah,
it's mostly acknowledging you and your journey to become less cognitive. When I met you a year ago, you're very smart and very cognitive about things, and that's how you would solve your issues, was cognitive. And then when you come into a huge situation like you came into, you couldn't solve it through cognitive means. And I think we do that as people. We try and think, because when we were younger, if we have trauma, it wasn't safe to be in our bodies, so we went up to our thoughts to try and save us. And that worked, gave us the idea that it worked when we were younger. But as we got older, those strategies don't work anymore. And we realized that we need connection with one-on-one and with a group to really heal those old traumas. We have a saying in therapy that it's not about what it's about. So you come in and go, oh, my wife, she's so controlling. It's not about your wife being controlling. It's about when you were 2 years old, your mother never let you do what you wanted to do and crushed your spirit. So it's not about the issue that we're talking about today. It goes back to an old issue of alarm. We go back into that old alarm place. And then when we're in alarm, we don't have that access because of our social engagement system is offline. We don't have that access to compassion for ourselves, which is exactly what we need to heal. So we try and get it from other people. And then when we learn that from other people, then we can give it to ourselves. So that's my last little bit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Russ, and for your friendship, for your mentorship, and the gift that you are to the world. I'm so it's been so amazing getting to share you with everybody that I know. So thanks for being there for me, brother.
Thanks for having me on the show, man. We'll talk to you soon.
So there you have it, folks. It's all about this intimacy upgrade can't be complete without empathic communication and a commitment to your greater version and having a community of people. Here's the key: a community of people who will be there supportive of you, but won't let you stay stuck in your victim story. That only will hold you accountable to the greater version of yourself, which is more loving, which is more empathetic, which is more grateful, that has transcended your past. And it is critical for you if you want to transform, you want to know, you want to up-level your intimacy, to go through all of those stages and steps. So let me know if anything came up for you. Thank you guys for your questions, for your engagement. I can see a couple people there. Let me know if you have any other questions. This show every single week, 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, or super early on Thursday mornings in Australia. So I'd be 5 or 6 a.m. Always make sure you catch the replay and tag somebody that you know that really needs to hear this, and share this with your tribe. I want to also invite you, we have our live trainings. If you are really ready, check in the comments section and join us upcoming. I'm going to leave a link there. Our upcoming live training overview experience, where we go through all of this over a weekend, and you get connected with a badass community of people who are up to the same game of expanding themselves and upgrading their levels of intimacy, activating the social engagement system, being playful, being fun, laughing, crying, connecting. This just might be the thing that you need. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Please don't hesitate to reach out, send me a private message if you have any specific questions, or you want for us to look at your specific case individually. You might qualify for an intimacy upgrade audit that is valued at $300, but you might qualify to get that absolutely at no cost, to see if you're committed to these 5 steps and transforming your life from the inside out. Once again, my name is Dr. Nima Rahmany, here in our studio in Vancouver, signing off, saying see you at the next perfect time.